Hi friends, this is Sherry and here we are live. Aren't you glad it's Friday? I am. And I just want to thank you for tuning in. I'm so excited about what we're going to see today. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sherry at Sherry Together. It's a space designed for you to grow and thrive. So I just thank you again for signing in. Well, what we're going to be seeing is a continuation of what we were seeing last week. We were seeing the first person that shows up in the wilderness in the biblical account, and we think, well, why is that important to me? Well, because we all have wildernesses. We all have these deserts in our lives, and there's things that we can learn and apply to our life to help us get out of those deserts. So, without any more time, we are going to recap the person we met last week. First person in the desert was a servant, a maid, and it was a woman that was in a very difficult situation. She found herself in the middle of the two patriarchs of the Jewish people, and Sarah, Abraham's wife, thought it was going to be a good idea for her to go and Hagar was pregnant, and Hagar went running out into the desert. And we saw that the angel of the Lord appeared to her. The angel of the Lord being also, some theologians say it was actually the Christ-like figure in the Old Testament. And so he appears and he tells Hagar to do three things. He says, go back and submit to Sarah, and I'm going to make of you a great nation. Actually, it was two in his promise. And so, you know what? Hagar did go back. Hagar went back to a situation that maybe wasn't what she wanted, and maybe you're in a situation and God is asking you to go back and it's not what you want. And you can choose whether you're going to do what you want or you're going to do what God's asking you. So anyway, Hagar goes back, and where we're picking up this week is already in Genesis chapter 21. And Hagar had been obedient, and being obedient had provided her a place of stability and a place of provision. She was being provided for. Her son was growing up in a home where there wasn't anything that was lacking. But we find there that Sarah has her child, and when he's being weaned, they have a hold a party for Isaac, and Ishmael, Hagar's son, is making fun, making sport of Isaac, and Sarah says to Abraham, this woman and her son, they've got to go. Well, this makes Abraham very sad because Ishmael was a son, and he just couldn't turn his back on his son. And God appears and speaks to Abraham and says, you know what, you do what Sarah is asking you to do. And so we look at Hagar, and she is in the situation again where she is at a disadvantage. And maybe you're listening today and there are situations in your life that have you at a disadvantage. Maybe it's because you're not married. Maybe it's because you're divorced or separated. Maybe it's a sickness. But there's just something in your life that just is a disadvantage. It doesn't seem fair, but you have to go through it. So we see Hagar in this situation, and Abraham gets up early one morning and he gets a portion of bread and water, and he puts it on her shoulder, and he sends her away with the boy, and she begins to wander in the desert. And when I think of this, it's moving, because you see this woman that's alone, and it seems like it's unfair. And she's in this situation where it's like a divorce, right? She's being put aside. There's this change, this huge change in her life, and she feels devaluated. It's a despairing situation. And if you are in that situation today, I have a word for you. And that is that God knows. Here we go. He knows what you're going through. And you might feel like you're all alone. Here Hagar was being put out and wandering in the desert, in the wilderness. And it seemed like no one cared. No one showed up, just like last week. And she's wandering. And so the story continues, right? Desert, the water's used up. And she gets to a point where she just has to cast the boy down. And she goes to a distance, it says a bow shot, right? When you shoot an arrow, a bow shot away. And she says, I can't bear to see my son die, so I'm just going to stay at this distance. And it says she lifted up her voice and wept. And you know, my friend, maybe you are in that situation where you're lifting up your voice, you're weeping, and you think no one hears, no one cares. And I'm in this alone. But I am here to tell you that God knows. I'm just trying to get my finger. God knows. And He cares. God knows and He cares. And it says when she lifted up her voice and cried, it says the angel of the Lord spoke out to her. And He told her, arise. Stand up. Get up. And today God is telling you, you're in a desperate situation. You think no one cares, but I'm sending you a word today. And that is, get up. Lift yourself up. And He says, be strong and sustain this child. So here she is in this desperate situation. God tells her 3 things. Stand up. Pick up your boy. And sustain him. And because I'm going to make of him a great nation. The promise. And it says, and then, right, once she did that, it says, then God opened up her eyes and she saw the well where she went and drank. And God showed up again for this woman that was at a great disadvantage. Life was not easy for her, and life may not be easy for you. But God knows what you're going through. God cares. God is telling you, get up. You need to lift yourself up. You need to lift up those around you. If you have children, if what you're going through is you see your son, your daughter that's going through this difficult time, He says, don't just give up on them. Go, pick them up, sustain them. I've got a promise over them and over you. And so I just need to share this with you, right? That God knows that God is present. God is present with you, even though you think He's not. That God has a plan that's unfolding. He has the plan that's unfolding, and He has promises. He has promises that hold true. These promises that hold true. And there's more. There's more. But next week, we are going to see where God chooses to take Israel, the Jewish people, and for what purpose, right? Why? Because the processes are processes that God uses in my life too. And when I learn to unlock God's processes, God's patterns, God's systems, when I recognize them, then I can tap into them and I don't allow the situations to defeat me. Because you know what? The enemy wants to get you out in your wilderness and make you feel like you're all alone, like no one cares, and he wants you to give up. But God has his presence with you. He has a plan and he has a promise over your life. But the enemy doesn't want you to know that. He doesn't want you to believe that. So I want you to be able to tune in next week, and we're going to continue seeing what God does in the wilderness of our lives, because he has a plan, he has a purpose, and he's working those things out. So what I want from you is, if you know of someone that is going through a hard time, share this with them. If you are listening to this and you like this, share this. Put a like, because this, what it does is it moves it up so more people can see this message of hope for them. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. That way you can hear the whole series that we're going to go unfolding in these next few months that are so essential to your life. Share your comments below. I want to hear them. And that's all for now. I'll see you next week. I love you, and God bless.